Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and tonight we're going to be looking at Bob Lazar and Element 115. I had another story planned, but I realized I wanted to do Bob Lazar more. Sorry if you came here for the McPherson tapes. But while we wait for people to gather in the chat, let me go off and show some artwork off for my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. So here we go. Let me go over here. The chat. Do this. Mainly because the McPherson tapes are more or less just a big accident that happened. While the Bob Lazar seems a lot more interesting. Here, let me go off get this up. Here's my Extreme 90s cover. This comic book cover I did to harken back to the comic books of the 90s. It looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? Now, the name of my graphic novel is Scumdogs. It's a parody of 80s cartoons. It parodies cartoon characters and stuff and situations in cartoons that we all grew up with. And to be exact, it's a story about the Scumdogs, who are supervillains out to take over the world or take over the universe. The Scumdogs themselves are former pro athletes. They're superhumanly powerful monsters who used to compete in sporting events called the Scumdog Sports for money. They're called scum dogs because they traded in their humanity for superpowers and to become superhuman monsters to compete for money and other things. Just to compete for money. So not exactly the nicest guys around. But what happens when guys like that get banned from sports? Well, the Scumdogs decide to take over the world, particularly Deathmug, the leader of the Scumdogs, who's fighting his archenemy on this cover, Buick Starpoon. A captain in the Space Forces, who's part of the Space Forces. Deathmug is the purple guy with the metal mask, while Buick Starpoon is the guy with the pink pompadour hair and the green and white uniform over there. Deathmug, as you can see, has various aspects of villains from 80s cartoons, mainly like Cobra Commander and Serpentor from G.I. Joe, the leaders of Cobra. Like Cobra Commander, he's got a silver metal mask, and like Serpentor, he's got gold on him, and he's purple like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, he's an overblown, arrogant bastard who wants to rule the world because he just wants to be the best there is. Well, he thinks he's the best there is because he's got a gigantic ego and stuff like that. While his archenemy Buick Starpoon is your classic military jerk-off. Jerk and stuff like that. He always thinks he's right, has a gigantic ego of himself, and can't stand Deathmug because, their egos are so big they can't stand each other in the room. Buick Starpoon is also, because he's a G.I. Joe parody, as well as a parody of characters like space hero kind of characters like Buzz Lightyear or Zap Brannigan or Buck Rogers, those kinds of guys. You can see it in his name, Buick Starpoon. But because Buick Starpoon is a G.I. Joe parody, it means he has a military specialty. Buick Starpoon's military specialty is that he's a captain in the Space Forces. While other members of his team, and if you notice his uniform, anyone wearing a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon? Yeah, anyone wearing a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon is part of his team in the Space Forces. This guy over here with the mohawk, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. He used to be part of the army before he joined the Space Forces. While this bald guy with a gun down here in the blue uniform, his name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's another Marine, just another Marine. While this guy back here in the red uniform firing off his weapons, the guy driving that heavy vehicle, his name is Blast Tank. The guy in the red uniform, you can see. His name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist, a tanker. Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back when my Indiegogo goes live, so there's that to look forward to. Now, let's go look at some more art. Here's Girl Friday. Or maybe I should do something else first. Maybe get this up here, because let me get right to this. All right. And get this down here. Yeah. Here is Girl Friday. She's another member of the Wild Rangers. She's part of Buick Starpoon's team. The Wild Rangers is the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. Girl Friday hates being part of the Wild Rangers, especially when she's the second in command to Buick Starpoon, and she does everything he says because her superiors in the Space Forces assigned her to the Wild Rangers because while the Wild Rangers fight the scum dogs and save the universe, they're just highly destructive idiots. And because of what they do, their idea of saving the world is basically burning everything in sight so the scumdogs can't conquer it. Basically gets them a lot of flack from the public. So her superiors in the Space Forces put Girl Friday on the team, and she hates it. She just really hates it. Now let's move on. Over here we have Deathmug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of a cartoon, his henchmen would be total idiots. These are Deathmug's idiots. The blue guy with the top hat is Murder Mouth, and the pink guy down here is Sloppy. There are a couple of idiots that can't do anything right, and they're a parody of every henchman from an 80s cartoon. They're going to laugh your head off when my Indiegogo goes live when Scumdogs goes live on Indiegogo. It's not live yet, folks, but when it does, you'll love it. All right. Here we have Hair Metal Doctor. Hair Metal Doctor is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe, a mad scientist, but my mad scientist is also a hair metal musician because I thought that'd be awesome to have in my book. Watch him rock out and do weird things. That's Hair Metal Doctor. And Miss Breasty Melons here, who is a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe, but unlike the Baroness, she's a party girl who wants to have fun. Come read about her in my Indiegogo when Scumdogs goes live. As I said, it looks pretty good. We looked at all this artwork and characters, and looked at my artwork. So let's go on and move on to something else. All right. Now, I did say I was going to look at Bob Lazar tonight. I was going to look at something else, but I figured there wasn't that much of a story, but we'll look at Bob Lazar and Element 115. We'll have some fun there and stuff like that, but maybe while we wait a moment while we look at Indiegogo real quick and just see what's up on graphic novels. All right, Alien Alamo has made 81,451. That's not too bad. Let's take a look at these updates. May 24th. Yeah, we looked at yesterday. The artwork looks pretty good. You can back this book for $25. You have a choice of several different covers. Each will cost you $25. Watch as aliens invade the Earth and Travis, Mr. Houston here, and his son fight off these aliens. Will they be able to do it? I think they will. You have a choice of 3 different covers, and they all look good. Any Indiegogos up before we move on and look at some stories? By the way, have you hit that like button for me, folks? If you have, please do so. Please hit that like button for me and stuff. All right. And also please share this. Yeah, please share this video on social media. Share it on Twitter and share it on Facebook. All right. Look down here. There's Stomp 2 comic book is now funding through in demand. Not bad. Not bad. Let's see. Other artwork. Oh, Mike Burns' Monster Hunt, Let's Get Cracking has made 19,519. It's done very well on Indiegogo, and that's very good. So that's going as well, folks. Help Mike Barron and back that book. It looks like a good one. All right. Well, all right. Let's go over here. Look at Stumped and stuff like that. Powerland. Hurry up. Let's see. Any other new books out? Octopus Cowboy 1. Not bad. Wirehead has made 12,374. Not too bad there. All right, not too bad. Not too bad. Lilith Series Book 3, the 3rd issue is out. It's made $63. It's got 29 days left. It'll probably make it. The other 2 have. And the artwork in the book looks pretty good. Ooh, Tales from the Netverse has made 7,781 and still running in demand, so that's good as well. 41, let's see, not too bad. All right. Perfect 10 issue 2 has made 12,644. Gunship Thunder Punch 2 has made a buttload of money. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at Bob Lazar. Let me go over here. Look at this. Oh, yeah. Do this. Get down here. Do this. Look at this. Also go over here. Let's see. Bob Lazar was on the Storm Area 51 movement. Claims FBI raid by UFO truther Bob Lazar, confirmed investigator says. Not too bad. We can look at that story in a little bit. Review Bob Lazar Air 51 flying saucers. Bob Lazar film presents the man behind the myth of Area 51. Review and director. All right, let's see. All right. Let's go down here. Do that. Well, I think I'll start off with this article here. Let's get a good idea about it. Let's see. More than classified than their bomb. It's all about propulsion. That part that was closer from the time bomb check the short video blow. Right. The Revelations of Bob Lazar. Yeah, I guess I should start off with these first. Bob Lazar, Air 51 flying saucers. Before Lazar, UFOs at Area 51 or not. From then to now, the development of Area, the world's most famous secret base. Saucers, spooks, and kooks, a new UFO book revealed. All right. UFOs, observations. I'm trying to find the... all right. Bob Lazar, Area 51, UFOs and Russians. I guess I should start off. Review of Bob Lazar, Area 51. Let's look at this article. Get on to it. And so it arrives, German Kenyon Locker Corbell's much anticipated feature and documentary about one of the most controversial UFO stories ever told. A story that, along with the infamous Roswell incident of 1947. Let me do this. 47 has arguably done more than any other. To shape the landscape of modern UFO mythology. In November 1989, a 30-year-old scientist by the name of Bob Lazar was interviewed exclusively by the respected investigator Robert George Knapp for the Las Vegas-based Class TV station. The topic of the interview was Lazar's alleged recent employment of a top-secret facility in Nevada desert called S4, which was located close to another top-secret facility called Area 51 to the public at the time. The story Lazar told was jaw-dropping, and he stands by it word for word to this day, despite continuous harassment by incredulous journalists, UFO buffs, and apparently various government agencies. Bob Lazar today sketching the flying saucer he claims to have worked on a facility called S4 near Area 51. For those with an open mind, a very open mind, it is perhaps easier to believe Lazar than one might imagine. He has always come across as absolutely sincere and has always resisted encouragement to embellish his original testimony. I am of the opinion that Lazar has never spoken truthfully about his recollections of Area 51 and S4. However, I have also never doubted that the story that he tells is untrue, which is to say that the circumstances events of Lazar's story were carefully orchestrated and staged for him, specifically as part of a sophisticated ongoing UFO perception management campaign, which likely has counterintelligence purposes far beyond the UFO subject. As has been documented by George Knapp and others, there is a good reason to believe that Lazar really did work in near Area 51 for a short time in the late 1980s, but it appears he was cherry-picked for his job based on his psychological profile and his spotty personal and business history. In other words, it was known and desired that he would blow the whistle when the time came and that it would be easy to publicly discredit him after he did so, considering that the story would not be accepted by all, but by just enough to ingrain into the rapidly expanding subculture belief system. Lazar told Knapp how he had been recruited to work at S4 for just a few weeks in 1989. 88 and 89. Everything, and everything was cloaked in secrecy and atmosphere at the base. 8, huh? Everything was cloaked in secrecy and atmosphere at the base was oppressive. Information was shared there strictly on a need-to-know basis, and his every move was closely monitored by armed security personnel. He claimed he was tasked with helping his employers at S4 to understand the propulsion system of a highly advanced airspace vehicle, which was being stored in one of the 9 camouflage hangars at the facility. When Lazar first set eyes on the craft, which was classic saucer-shaped, and which he later dubbed the sport model, he assumed it was man-made. Had not been a believer in flying saucers as the days and weeks went by. However, Lazar came to a conclusion that the craft must have been extraterrestrial in origin. Its technology was far too advanced to have been of human design, and furthermore, its seats were far too small to accommodate human adults. They were child-sized, he said. A close-up of Lazar's saucer sketch, which he explains in detail. Documentary. Oh, look at that. While S4 on another occasion, Lazar was taken into office and shown a briefing document which he was told to study that describing how aliens from Zeta Reticuli, classic big-eyed grays, had been interacting with humanity for at least 10,000 years. Literally everything Lazar read in the documents regarding human history, alien biology, and political events supported the disinformative narrative that had been actively sown into the UFO community since the early 1980s by U.S. intelligence operatives. The form of the fraudulent J12 documents and the highly questionable testimony of Mirage men, names like Falcon and Condor. The question is, why was Lazar, who was supposedly employed strictly on a need-to-know basis? Yeah, Bob Lazar, who had, as you said, has been contracted by the U.S. government to work at S4, look at various, UFOs and stuff like that, and particularly was working on one he called a sports model, as well as in basically looking at an element. Well, he was trying to rebuild one of these UFOs and without the primary element that allowed it to fly, element 115. He was tasked with building such a device because they wanted to reverse engineer it, and they wanted to try it without using the 115 element because they wanted to understand how it worked. He couldn't make the thing work because it needed the element 115. So, all very strange as well. Feel free to leave me some chats, folks. I'd love to hear from you guys. Lazar, who was supposedly employed strictly on a need-to-know basis, a physicist with very specific technical tasks given access to top-secret documentation, had literally no bearing on that task. Given access to top-secret documentation. On that. Perhaps the answer is that Lazar was being deliberately seeded with disinformation and was expected to later share it with the public. The orchestrated nature of Lazar's experience is also supported by one of his most bizarre recollections of his time in S4, in which he set eyes on an alien entity working quite literally side by side with human scientists. At least that is what he was meant to believe. He saw Lazar claims that on the night in question he was being escorted down a hallway by armed security personnel who had instructed him to keep his eyes forward at all times with his instruction in mind. As they passed the door, naturally Lazar glanced to one side. His peripheral vision detected what he thought in that moment was one of the gray aliens he had read about in the briefing documents. The small figure was stood between 2 men in lab coats. The 3 of them were looking at a computer console, and the alien had its back to the door. Lazar's glimpse was so fleeting that no fine details were distinguishable. He was then pushed further along the corridor by one of the guards, who instructed him once again to keep his eyes forward. Lazar himself has always been open to the possibility that this incident was staged specifically for him, using a doll or a dummy, and has speculated that someone may have been playing mind games with him. All right. Most of the events described above are featured in Corbell's documentary, the form of an archived news footage of Lazar and on-camera testimony of the UFO icon he appears today, working in his lab or at home with his wife. We also get some input from his friends, family, and colleagues, all of whom would fully support his story as this reporter who introduced Area 51 to the world. George Knapp featured predominantly in Corbell's film, again, both in the form of archived footage and speaking from his Bianca fights the zombies. Aloha, Bianca fights the zombies. Aloha, dudes. Aloha, Bianca fights the zombies. Nice of you to check in. We're looking at Bob Lazar's Area 51 and Element 115 tonight. We're going to be talking about that. Let's see. Let me get back to this report. Feel free to leave me a few more chats. Bianca fights the zombies. I always love to talk to you. As we George Knapp. They both have a form of archive footage and speaking from his home in the present day as if a disembodied version of Corbell's speaking phone. Hollywood legend Mickey Rourke is billed as narrating the documentary, but his contributions amount to little more than sporadic, largely unintelligible mumblings about the nature of truth and the universe, which threatens seriously to derail Corbell's narrative whenever it finds time to settle into a groove, which isn't very often. From the get-go, throughout Corbell's film is marred by an intrusive and overproduced electronic sound beat off of pulsing intensity. It's almost relentless as it serves only to distract from the story itself, which is more than sufficiently compelling to the presented without whistles and bells. For those already well read on the Lazar case, Bob Lazar offers a few surprises that it is fascinating nevertheless to spend time with. The man, 30 years from when he rocked the world, Corbell succeeds in showing us Lazar, the man and the legend up close and personal, revealing, ironically, a pretty down-to-earth guy who's tried his best to get on with his life as a scientist and businessman, as removed as possible from the maddening world of ufology. For better or for worse, he has chosen to be largely silent spectator of the formation of, myth. The film does present some circumstantial corroborative evidence of Lazar's claims. One scene sees Corbell presenting Lazar with photographs he was acquired of the high-tech hand scanners used at Area 51. Lazar had always maintained that these devices were used in his time at S4. When he described them in the late 80s, they sounded like science fiction. Apparently not. The look of Lazar's face as he examines the photos is one of obvious familiarity, and what he's seeing and his sense of vindication is palpable. One of his most interesting and dramatic scenes, Lazar and his colleagues describing a disturbing raid on his home during the production of Corbell's film by a parade of government agencies in search of something. I will avoid spoilers here. The face of it, these events had some support to the notion that Lazar is of considerable interest to the U.S. national security apparatus and all that implies. Yet, frustratingly, Corbell makes little of this in his documentary. By the time the credits roll, the crucial scene is almost forgotten. Bob Lazar's Area 51 and Flying Saucers make it for an entertaining and thought-provoking viewing, but what is missing is any real sense of the political, ufological climate Lazar's story originally came into light. We get to the what, we don't get the why, given the recent revelations of Pentagon concerning UFOs are tied in with the efforts of self-styled disclosure heroes. Understanding the motivations behind UFO disinformation efforts is today more important than ever, but Corbell Lazar's story is presented in a cultural and political vacuum. Looks very interesting, huh? Hello, folks. You still there? Let me go back to share screen. There. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button again. All right. Not too bad. Not too bad. Let me go back over here. There. Bob Lazar film presents the man behind the myth. Exclusive interview with the director. Area 51. Maybe I should put look for Bob Lazar over here. All right. Look for a few like that. Mysterious wire. Clear the air about Lazar. But all right, what happened to Bob Lazar and where is he now? All right. Let's see. Then there. Yeah. good look at that. Let's see. More classified than the ion bomb. It's all about propulsion. They're supposed to like that. Let's look at this story. It has Bob Lazar in it. The builder mountain UFO landing the Montana case. You do when you sail on ice. This again is interesting detail, one that is remarkably similar to how Bob Lazar would describe the workers of such otherworldly craft further still. All right, let's do this. According to the wife of controversial UFO researcher Frank Scully, the one-time head of Project Blue Book, Edward Rupert, would state to her husband that all of the books published about flying saucers, your book was the one that gave us the most headaches because it was the closest. The truth, huh? Scully is a controversial researcher, not due to his intent to fool, but more because of his amount of apparent disinformation his sources would pass his way. Perhaps that is an indication of just how accurate many of Scully's accounts might actually have been. Of all that Scully would highlight in the UFO phenomenon, then in its relative infancy in the late 50s and early 60s would be the propulsion systems of these apparent otherworldly vehicles, and more specifically, the energy source. Okay, it doesn't look like there's too much on Bob Lazar in this story. Effort and the Aztec incident. All right, let me go down here and stuff like that. We're talking about Bob Lazar. After all, I probably should look at other stuff, but I figured I might just skim through this article and basically say what we have on him. Reason for invisible spaceships. Here's Bob Lazar again. As I said, this will give us an idea on the technology here. Of all the aspects that Scully would highlight in the UFO phenomenon, and then in its relative incidence in the late 50s or 60s, maybe just look for Bob Lazar real quick. After next incident. The Revelations of Bob Lazar. In 1989, previously unheard of technology. Yeah. Let me read the rest of this article. Then this will get to an idea of Bob Lazar and what element for 115. We'll be talking about that as well. At least I think this will have something to do with the 115 element. If it's going to mention Bob Lazar in this article, I figured I'd cover it. Of all the aspects that would highlight the UFO phenomenon in its relative infancy in the late 50s and stuff that would be the propulsion systems, before we look at what may prove to be one of the most important UFO incidences of the 20th century. Now we're getting into this. We're trying to get into it. Is a short interview with who we have written before, and in it he discusses in detail alien propulsion systems and his work with them. We'll just be looking at the written part here. I don't want to get a copyright strike for looking at a video. Alfred and the Aztec. On a perfectly still and serene evening in the Aztec desert, 25th of March 48, a blazing disc-shaped object screamed out of the sky before embedding itself in the sandy ground. The United States military was soon on the scene. They would quickly set about transporting the wreckage to the White Sands Air Force Base. The craft was a series of rings that seemingly rotated around a central cabin. The material was of strength unknown to the military, yet at the same time it was as light as aluminum. The whole thing, as is the case with other UFO reports, appeared to be from one whole piece of material. It would take almost 2 weeks to fully move the ruined craft, as well as the remains of the vehicle were the bodies of 16 alien beings. Another UFO investigator, Glenn Campbell, would also pick up the Aztec incident. Source for many of Campbell's reports was a man named Alfred. Not only was he present for the aforementioned incident, but he spent considerable time in the company of high-ranking scientists. According to Alfred, his official job was a technical photographer at a nuclear test base. He would speak to Campbell about a particular conversation. By the way, folks, hit that like button for me. It really helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content, as well as please hit that bell for me, and also hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications for my videos. And please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Let's get back to this. Let's get back to this article about a particular conversation between himself and German physicists in Operation Paperclip Transplant Otto here. If true, it could be one of the most important conversations in history. Before we look at the details of this exchange, another video and stuff, we can't really cover it. The reason for UFO secrecy. I've written it before of Nikola Tesla and his desire and apparent somehow know-how to provide the world with free energy. We have also written several times of Gary McKinnon, of Gary in here, who, while hacking into the computer system, of the NSA, told the BBC the reasons for research was that there are some very credible, relied upon people saying, yes, there's a UFO technology, there's an anti-gravity, there's free energy, and it's extraterrestrial in origin, and they've captured spacecraft and reverse engineered it. As fanciful and outlandish as it might sound to some, that firstly, free of natural energy exists, free or natural, and second, the government and corporations would suppress this information. A quick examination of both points brings us into focus how real this notion likely is. Short, you have to realize just how much money connects to the energy market and just how far and how many different ways it's reached churches into all aspects of modern life. Indeed, the petrodollar system perhaps required reading to get the grasp of this a little further. According to Alfred in his conversation with Otto Krause, not only was Aztec, the Roswell incident real, but both of the crashes would offer up alien beings as well as the ruins of highly advanced crafts. Furthermore, both of the crafts were subject to reverse engineering. Krause would tell Alfred it took them a long time to get into the thing and figure out how it worked. That was what it was, the classified parts of the UFO, the mechanism that powered it. There was more classified than the atomic bomb. The Revelations of Bob Lazar. In 1989, a previously unheard of technical engineer, Bob Lazar would become a well-known name around the world, if only temporarily, during the appearance of Las Vegas television. In an interview with respected journalist George, Lazar would claim to, we were talking the Nap there and stuff. Lazar would claim to be employment of the U.S. Los Alamos Laboratory, where, among other things, he worked with alien technology. News outlets around the world would pick up on the piece, as would newspapers and magazine titles. Each of was a varying amount of sensationalism, despite official denials from the Los Alamos National Laboratory that Lazar had ever been in employment. Knapp's research would reveal a very clear paper trail to suggest Lazar was being truthful. According to Lazar, he would first come into contact with the agency in 1982. We would go through an intense, drawn-out interview conducted over many different meetings. He would eventually, according to Lazar, receive Q clearance, not just Q clearance either, 38 levels above that clearance. In terms of the project that he would work on, Lazar would state that Congress, in his opinion, was likely not aware of the governing body of the work going on. What he could gather, the projects began in the late 40s and were quickly sealed off limits to outsiders. It is an interesting concept and one that sounds like the subplot to the X-Files, Cancer Man. The Cancer Man character. The thing is, as wild as the comparison is, it is likely very true. Element 115. Here we go. Well, most would quickly decide that Lazar was misguided best. At least one part of this account would prove to be very true. Almost 2 decades later, the properties that the military was experimenting with regarding propulsion, one of them mentioned it was element 115, which at the time didn't officially exist. Hence, most dismissed Lazar as essentially making it up. Years later, however, along with his apparently correct predicament, element 115 became confirmation. Elements, a bunch of them as well, including element 115. Science, all are super heavy substances, as mentioned by Lazar. Okay, so what are we to make of Bob Lazar? To many, he is a loner. To avoid to others, this same status makes him trustworthy. We should perhaps note that the element 115 spoken of in mainstream differs to that offered by Lazar. In his defense, Lazar would state that mainstream science simply has not perfected the process. Furthermore, he was confident that time will prove him correct when he said to George Knapp, "We'll see what other isotopes they come up with. One of them or more will be stable and will have the exact properties that I said." Lazar also offered that the UFOs were not the invention of the military, but genuine saucer-shaped discs constructed by extraterrestrials. The bending of space and time. We have written of the encounters of Sergeant Charles Moody and his descriptions he would give of the inner workings of the silver disc craft. Yeah. We talked about Bob Lazar just now and about element 115. Yeah. So we haven't perfected making 115, but Bob Lazar is sure that it will work the way he thinks it will. And I am inclined to believe him. Let me go back over here. Bob Rogers, Loomis Sunburn. Tyler from Secure Team 10 has met Bob Lazar. You should check him out on YouTube. I know I've seen Secure Team 10. I watch his videos all the time, and thank you for mentioning him, folks. Thank you, Bob Rogers, for mentioning him. Little Miss Sunshine, right? Yeah, get back to it here. So I finished this article, folks. It's going on to a different guy, but maybe it should finish this off to give you context of what's happening as we're talking about Bob Lazar. How they've erased it. Well, it looks like the military erased most of his scientific credentials and stuff like that. Him getting his degrees in science and stuff like that, but they left a clear paper trail that says he did work at these areas, and that he has been to these schools and has had degrees. Mostly they erased all of that, so no one can actually. He has no actual proven record that he was actually ever a degree in rocket science or anything like that. As well as the fact that none of the teachers who worked at these schools remember him, but also for the fact that they also tried to erase any evidence that he worked at various laboratories and stuff like that, but forgot to actually erase any paper trail. Like the fact that this laboratory was giving him a paycheck and or such things like that. Maybe not paychecks, but they clearly left a paper trail tying Bob Lazar to the various laboratories and places he worked at when he says he worked at there, proving that he had been there at least. No, proving that he had worked there. Period. So, should I finish the rest of this article? Looking more at Bob Lazar in element 115. What degrees that the government people have gone to try and erase this man. Bob Lazar, basically, if you're wondering why he came out to George Knapp, is because the best way he could hide was to hide in public by making himself. If I were to suddenly disappear, folks, and yelling that to the entire world, if I disappear, I did not disappear or commit suicide. I did not intentionally disappear or commit suicide. Someone has made me commit suicide. Know this, folks, because I know all of this stuff. I've worked on alien spacecraft, and the government is after me. So please, if I disappear or am found dead of apparent suicide, I did not kill myself. That was Bob Lazar's opinion when he came out to the public. Very interesting. Let's see. We have written of the encounters of Sergeant Moody, of encounters of Charles Moody, and the descriptions he would give of the inner workings of the silver disc-shaped craft. He would go aboard years later while speaking to UFO researcher Timothy Good. Lazar would matter-of-factly describe remarkable similar inner workings. He would state that a central column ran through the middle of the craft and would act as a wave guide. This connects to an antimatter reactors, which are spear-like and produce a gravity field. It's for the ship its own. Yeah, for the craft its own, like that gravity field and stuff. It is this, according to Lazar, that makes manipulation of space and time possible. So the ship would make its own gravity field. That's that's interesting. Lazar would assert that the crafts he had seen had 3 gravity amplifiers on them. Underside these amplifiers would have their energy focused on a desired destination, and the craft would go there, or more to the point, the destination would go to the craft. Lazar would describe this by stating if the craft was a big stone on a sheet of paper, the gravity technology would pull the desired destination to it. I get it. A big stone on a sheet of on a big sheet of paper. No, it says rubber there. Big sheet of rubber. I don't understand why a sheet of rubber on a big stone on a big. With me, it sounds like paper. It sounds like the ship itself would be a magnet, and they'd set the magnet to this one place, and the ship itself would be drawn to that place like a magnet to a piece of metal. Sounds like that's what it sounds like to me, or or something else to that degree. This is literally been in space and time. Once the gravity amplifiers shut down, space or the rubber sheet retracts back to its original point. Only now it takes the craft or the stone with it. Lazar would further attest that traveling like this in deep space is relatively simple. This, due to there being little or no gravity to affect travel, the gravity technology manufactures this gravitational pull, destroying and bending space, and then rides the wave as it goes back to the original point. When traveling to planets, however, particularly Earth, due to its strong gravitational pull, this travel becomes much more difficult and unstable. According to Lazar, the intense weather systems also interfere with this equipment. Reason for invisible spaceships. To overcome these conditions, the crafts have to the gravity of the Earth, use their gravity generators to do so. This, according to Lazar, is also the reason for why many people come to see craft in one moment and then have it vanish right before them. Similarly, for the signs of orbs or lights in the sky that seem to dart around in a zigzag motion. What is actually happening is the craft is riding the wave of space, retracting to its original position. Lazar further offered, this is why some people can see UFOs and others can't. You could be staying right under it, and the gravity generators are the correct configuration. All you can see is sky. He would offer to good at the same time another group of people could be so far to the left or right of those under the invisible craft and see it clear as day. It just depends on how the field is bent. This technology and manipulation of gravity and space-time also accounts for the often described breakneck 90-degree turns. Speed of light, Lazar would state this was simply time and space distortion taking place. There is a description regarding how accurate Lazar may or may not have been. However, it seems apparent that there is more to him than just some crazy guy or someone who happened to have got himself mixed up with the wrong crowd. All right. That's very interesting, isn't it, folks? What Bob Lazar is seeing and stuff like that. What he's talked through, what the element 15 is and stuff like that. So basically, like a sheet of rubber, the gravity field will be bent and stuff like that. And when you basically and you have a certain target for it, the gravity field itself will bend and warp space and time around your ship and take you directly to that object, because it'll be like rubber itself, or like a sheet of rubber. Your ship is onside the on the sheet of rubber, and after you're done stretching it out, because think of your ship as a stone that's been placed on a piece of rubber that's been stretched out, or rather stuck to the piece of rubber or tied to it. When you're done stretching that piece of rubber out, and you release your grip on it, the rubber will retract, taking the ship with it. Or the gravity will retract and take the ship with it to the desired destination, particularly any planet. Okay, I get it. That's very interesting. So you bend space-time and like a piece of rubber, or you get the idea. It stretches out around your ship, and when you release your grip on it, when you cause the gravity to basically retract to its original position, it'll take your ship directly to the planet you desire it to. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I'd love to hear a few more chats from you guys talking about your ideas as this as well. Think Bob Lazar is full of it, or do you think he's onto something here? Could very well be. In fact, let's go look at a few more observers on the Storm Area 51 movement. Claims FBI raid by UFO truther Bob Lazar. Yeah, confirmed by investigators, says. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, I've heard about this as well. Series of documents related to the FBI raid involving Bob Lazar, an alleged former employee of the famous Area 51, appear to confirm events which transpired during the filming of a recent documentary about the controversial science about him. Let me say this before we move on. Do you think he's actually a disinformation agent, Bob Lazar, or that they gave him this information basically for him to leak it out? Think that's actually the truth, folks? I don't know. It could be, but I have my doubts. But it probably is. That's only because I don't know what really went on here. Bob Lazar basically was shown all this stuff basically for himself, and they basically saw it in his own, in his own profile that he was the kind of guy who would basically, as soon as he could, basically spill the information out to other people so that they know about it. Could very well be. Let's get back to this article, about him. Since the 90s, Lazar has claimed to have once been employed at a high security, since the late 80s, since the 80s, at a high security facility at Groom Lake, Nevada, where he observed UFO technologies being developed in the United States. However, past attempts at confirming Lazar's claims offer little insight about his past employment and education, apart from casting many of his claims in a light. A recent documentary, Bob Lazar and Area 51 and Flying Saucers, by filmmaker Jeremy Kerbel, tells Lazar's story of alleged government work, flying saucers. While the documentary was being made, Lazar alleged that the FBI raid occurred on his business, which has been proven to be true. United States Nuclear Scientific, which some have previously argued could not be proven. Previously could not be proven. However, new documents revealed that the raid did indeed occur, as Lazar claimed, in addition to basically casting light on the reason for the FBI's interest in Lazar and his business. Okay. Timothy McMillian, a Savannah-based civil rights investigator, former law enforcement officer, obtained the documents through a recent Freedom of Information Act request, which he later posted on his blog. Speaking with McMillian recently, he explained that he was interested in seeing if records were available, which lent support to claims made by Lazar and Kerbel's documentary. In this film, Jeremy depicted an FBI raid that occurred in Lazar's business, United Nuclear Scientific. In the film, it was depicted as a fairly large-scale operation, a coordinated effort, and it seemed odd. McMillian adds, given the timing, that for the first time in 30 years, Bob Lazar had sort of re-emerged into public limelight, or was about to, with Jeremy's film. I know Jeremy Kerbel. I've spoken with him several times, received a lot of flack from people who felt like that raid was made up, and Jeremy admitted wasn't there when that happened. He heard about it from Bob. I realized that very likely there was going to be some documentation from the local police department there in Lindsborg, Michigan. Coming from a police background, I was involved in a lot of different incidents with the federal government just out of necessity for logistics, or oftentimes familiarity, reliability reasons. Once the local police department became involved, McMillian decided to look for an agency, he said, a report about the raid, which he may have been on file with the Lindsborg Police Department. It's a report that says an outside authority came and asked for your assistance. I fired off a Freedom of Information Act request to the Lindsborg Police Department. McMillian says, amazingly, he says they've responded to his request within just 3 business hours. At the federal level, you can wait months and years. McMillian said there's a lot more requests. It's a larger entity. On the local level, sometimes I wait minutes. The document doesn't confirm the portrayal of an FBI raid at Bob Lazar's business, United Nuclear Scientific being a large-scale coordinated effort with 24 or more law enforcement agents in sight. The guy says the documents also indicate that the actual reason for the raid, according to McMillian, had to do with the research for an illegal chemical substance pertaining to an unrelated investigation that involved a homicide where the victim was believed to have been poisoned. Federal authorities also obtained a warrant to search Lazar's business, although the documents state that Lazar willfully allowed them to enter for their search. During the appearance on Larry King's program, seen in the video below, Bob Lazar, accompanied by director Jeremy Kerbel, thought about the reasons for the FBI raid earlier this year. McMillian, who posted the documents about the raid on his website, redacted the names of those associated with the unrelated homicide investigation. Last thing I want to do is to see people be harassed, McMillian said, also stating that nothing in the documents seemed to indicate there was a suspicion of Lazar's involvement with any crime. There's no evidence that Bob Lazar was, or at any time was involved in any criminal activity. Tim McMillian offers additional details on the incident, which includes the files he obtained through FOIA requests of FOIA request of his blog, Chasing the Coyote's Tail. So while this document shows that the FBI did in fact occur, we now can confirm that it appears to have nothing to do with Lazar's ongoing claims about having once worked at the secret of Area 51. While this new information stops, well, do we actually believe that, folks, or does it look like they need some reason to basically raid his business because they were looking for something that possibly Bob Lazar had stolen from S4, like Element 115? Well, stops short of providing any indication of Bob Lazar's more controversial past statements. It will no doubt add to the mystique that Lazar has already maintained now for decades. Yeah, all right. Sorry, folks, another mistake there. Let me go back to share screen. But very interesting where we're doing that. I keep hitting the wrong button because I wanted to keep looking at your chats and stuff like that. Let me go over here. Yeah, I wanted to go back here and stuff like that. So what do you think? Do you think that the government was looking for him because they think he had some Element 115? In fact, people have said that there's the recent Los Angeles guy with a jetpack could be Bob Lazar because he is a jetpack powered, or at least or at least using Element 115 to fly around on. It could be as well. He is a scientist after all, and he does look like the kind of guy who would build rockets for fun. It's been said that Bob Lazar says he has his own nuclear collider he built in his bedroom, basically nonchalantly, and he just loves talking about it and basically speculating on such things, which could very well be true as well, folks. By the way, hit that like button for me. It helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content, as well as please hit that bell and basically hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my future videos. And please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Either way, Bob Lazar has been said could be the kind of guy who basically humble or basically brags about his scientific background and how smart he is. So it wouldn't be surprising if he had stolen some Element 115 and was now using to fly around, and the government is basically suspicious that it is actually him that people are seeing flying around with a jetpack. I wouldn't be surprised either if he had stolen some of the technology. And because he basically hides in the public by having everyone know who he is, the government can't just basically come out and kill him for fear of what that would just point the finger directly at them, who are the ones who actually killed him. All right. Either way, it does sound massively interesting. All right. Let's see. Let's look at some more. We're coming to the end of this live stream, but hey, we have a little more. Saucer Spooks and Kooks, a new UFO book revealed. Area 51, listener informants, conspiracies. I'm trying to find some more articles on Bob Lazar over here so we can look at. Bob Lazar's Area 51 UFO and Russians. Let's take a look at this. Have we already read this? I'm not quite sure. Here at Mysterious Universe, Bob Graham just reviewed the new documentary of Jeremy Corbell, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and stuff like that. Robbie says that following of Lazar, he has always come across as absolutely sincere and has always resisted encouragement to embellish his original testimony. I am of the opinion Lazar has never spoken truthfully about this. Oh, yeah, I think we just read this. All right. Let me go for some more information here. What do you think about Bob Lazar, folks? Do you think he's actually talking seriously about this stuff? From then to now, the development of Area 51, the world's most secret base. I could look at that. Saucer Spooks and Kooks, a new UFO book revealed. Let's take a quick look at this. Available right now is a book from, is a new book. Adam Gorightly. Saucer Spooks and Kooks. It's subtle UFO disinformation in the age of Aquarius. If when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, you're kind of a person who considers yourself to be. Does this have anything to do with Bob Lazar? I know Bob Lazar has basically been in and out of the public eye for the last few years, or rather decades. Talking about element 115, which has been proven to be a real element, which is amazing, huh, folks? No one can basically say that Bob Lazar is basically talking completely about or basically saying lies, because element 15 has been proven to exist. It might not be exactly like the element Bob Lazar has talked about when he basically mentioned element 115, but he says that it's only because we have not perfected the actual formula for creating element 115. So that is also interesting. So if we make a perfected element 115, we'll be able to basically have our own gravity drives to basically make our own spaceships, which is a very well possibility. I'd love to hear a few chats from you folks about this opinion as well. Do you think it's possible that we could build our own gravity drives and travel through space ourselves very soon? It sounds like we've reverse engineered technology and are very close to making our own, which sounds very interesting. But I would love to hear your opinions of this. But who knows? Do you think Bob Lazar is on the truth about this? From what I hear, it sounds like he's being truthful. I just can't. Can't say for sure. I could read this article about Area 51 movement and stuff like that, but it's basically just his opinion on it, what was happening with Area 51 a few years ago. But either way, it's very interesting. As I said, I think Bob Lazar is telling the truth. At least I think he's telling the truth. He did work at these various areas, and that this is basically him being used as an information agent to basically get information about this out to the public. So the more people know about it, the less frightened it will be when this information is confirmed to be true. Could very well be. By the way, folks, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read Comics They're Bad For You, will you? As well, just the title is misspelled, so it's Read Comics it's Read Comics They're Bad For You. It's THERE. Make sure you're still subscribed, as well as hit that like button for me. It helps me fight the algorithm, and leave some comments down below. Okay, I love to hear from you guys. As well as please hit that bell, and make sure to hit that part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my future videos. As well as please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook and Gab. Also, please go over and subscribe to Stitch Together Pics. Stitch Together Pics is a YouTube channel that deserves far more subscribers. It's Stitched Together Pics. It's hosted by the Maniacal Cinephile. His character is a great character you'll laugh at. His character he plays basically has a multiple personality disorder, and each character he plays with his one character here is just funny and hilarious. That's Stitched Together Pics. Go and subscribe to it. As well as go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is like the Art Bell radio show. He releases small videos talking about high strangeness, but he also does live streams every night. On weekdays, he live streams at 12:30 a.m. and on weekends, he does live streams at 10 o'clock p.m. and 3 o'clock a.m. He talks about aliens and ghosts, and you learn so much from watching Creepy Little Book. His live streams are just so informative about the weird and strange things that go on in the world. You learn so much about aliens and ghosts. Also, please go over and subscribe to Robot Co-op. Robot Co-op is like the Mystery Science Theater 3000. You can sign up to them on Twitch. You'll have fun watching their live streams about aliens and ghosts. You'll have fun watching their live streams about them playing video games. They play these games, and they're just so much fun to watch. All right? I did that. Remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, or 8 or 10 for another live stream. So be sure to come back again. So be sure to come back again then. Now, we looked at this video. We had some fun. We looked at Bob Lazar and the various things he worked at. We talked about how Bob Lazar his identity has basically been erased by the government, basically to silence him, or at least he thinks that's what they're trying to do, and possibly even try to kill him so that no one would believe him. They erased his identity to say that he wasn't a scientist and had never worked at any of these various laboratories. But the thing is, there's still a clear paper trail of him working at these various laboratories, so they couldn't erase that. All of it could very well be distant information employed by the government that basically erases identity to a point, but leave it enough of his identity left to basically paint them in, or rather present the story in such a way that there is credence to what he's said, that he did work at these places, that he has seen alien spacecraft, and that he is telling the truth. Basically, so he can be, when basically aliens become public knowledge, that people won't freak out over them. All of this is basically to get the idea out there that aliens exist. And that's with that, once people realize they do exist, that they won't completely lose it, completely lose their minds. I'm not sure about how well that will work. But hey, it does basically, it's all highly entertaining, isn't it, folks? They'll know about. Now, folks, I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdog's Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another live stream. We'll have even more fun tomorrow. Oh, another chat. Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunshine. Bianca Fights the Zombies. Aloha, dudes. Tyler from Secure Team 10 has met with Bob Lazar. Yeah, I have. I know all about Secure Team 10 and Bob Lazar, Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunburn. But thank you for basically sending in another chat and stuff like that. I see you send another one in and stuff like that. That's pretty good too. Or it's the same chat and stuff, and it's just showing up now. Mm-hmm. Thank you. As I said, thank you so much for sending another chat. Oh, Cecil says it's adult only content. Hello, Cecil. You want to come on my show? I was hoping I could get you on here. I can send a link to you. I could send a link for Bob Rogers' Little Miss Sunburn too. I think you'd love to meet her, as well as Bianca Fights the Zombies. I've been waiting to get you on here, Cecil. Want to talk about Bob Lazar and Element 115, or maybe about comic books? Either way is fine with me. So leave me a chat, and we can have some more fun. I also have new artwork to show as well. So I guess I continue talking about Bob Lazar. We talked about how his identity has mostly been erased from the public, or rather, a lot of his information. But the government left information about him. And Cecil says, "Can't tonight." Too bad, Cecil. Oh well. Thank you for basically responding, and thank you all for basically leaving all these tweets for me. And thank you all. We'll have some more fun tomorrow. See you later, folks. Remember, folks, I'll have Cecil sometime on my show, and we'll have some more fun. We'll have a big show then, or I'll also try to get John Malin on as well. All right. Till then, folks, or rather, see you later. Yeah, see you later.